Tell Kim Dyer that Cobra Kai is back.
There are no bad students, only bad teachers. There's probably no other character in all of fiction that embodies this statement more than the man who is the focus of our video today. This ruthless sensei and war veteran is actually the cause of most of the problems in the world of the Karate Kid, and that's exactly what we are here to explore. If you still haven't guessed, it's the disgraced founder of the Cobra Kai, John Kreese, we are talking about. And well, this guy is just a piece of work. But before we dive into all the punching and kicking, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It might be just a small click for you, but to us, it means an awful lot. Well, with that out of the way, I guess it's time to go.
I won't make that mistake again. Grace! No mercy.
Early life in the Vietnam War. Like most villains, Kreese didn't have the happiest childhood. He was born just after the Second World War in 1946 in the San Fernando Valley. Home life was already screwed from the moment Kreese was born, as his mother was prone to crippling mental breakdown. Her condition deteriorated steadily after Kreese's birth, and in 1965, the troubled woman committed suicide. This left the young boy to fend for himself, and it never really got easier for him. Also, the 40s weren't really the best times for people suffering from mental condition, and the stigma around Kreese's mother's illness meant that he was bullied for most of his life. Kreese found a meager job at a local diner, but even there, peace was hard to come by. One day, some local jocks entered the cafe accompanied by a really pretty woman named Betsy. The group was led by Betsy's boyfriend, a towering young man known as David. While serving the group, Kreese found himself catching Betsy's gaze, but this only enraged David further. Kreese walks away after being ridiculed by the group, and the table is visited by a uniformed military officer looking for new recruits to join the war in Vietnam. The jocks paid no attention to the officer, but Kreese finds himself oddly drawn to the recruitment pamphlet. However, before the movement can even sink in, David knocks Kreese over, while the guy has a full tray of cutlery in his hand. No doubt this causes quite a mess, but Kreese still manages to compose himself and walk away. But sometime later, Kreese finds Betsy and David in an altercation out in the parking compound. David is giving Betsy a tough time looking at Kreese back in the diner, and things escalate to the point where Kreese is forced to step in. A fight ensues, and despite suffering some grievous injury, Kreese emerges victorious. As David and his friends lie on the ground, all bloody and broken, Kreese tells them that he has been fighting bullies all his life. He then offers Betsy a car ride, which marks the beginning of their love story. However, the happiness doesn't last long, and soon afterward, Kreese decides to enlist in the army. By 1968, Kreese had already become something of a warrior in Vietnam, after surviving multiple missions and tours. This leads him to the attention of certain superiors, including Turner, the captain of the unit. After hearing stories of Kreese's exploits, Turner recruits Kreese to his special task force, which will soon be heading into the north of the country for direct action missions. Moreover, these missions would be highly classified, where they would be carrying no insignias or even IDs. Kreese's desire to gain glory in the theater of war leads him to agree, and he brings his friends Terry Silver and Ponytail along for the ride. The task force soon split away from the rest of the unit, and soon they were in the thick of it. Turner became something of a father figure to Kreese and taught him everything from guerrilla tactics to martial arts. Turner, a veteran of the Korean War, Jad gained mastery in the fighting form known as Tang Soo Do under the tutelage of the renowned master Kim Soon-young. Under Turner, Kreese began to gain proficiency in the elusive fighting style, which became the foundation of Cobra Kai. However, Turner's leadership had its own demerits, as he wanted all his underlings to shed their humanity during confrontations with the enemy. According to Turner, a true soldier should have no room for hesitation, second thoughts, or mercy when facing an enemy. Some days later, the task force embarked on a reconnaissance mission and began canvassing a compound under the People's Army of Vietnam. Terry Silver ran off to get air support, while Ponytail began setting explosives all around the compound. While the mission was still underway, Silver's radio suddenly exploded, which led to Turner ordering Kreese to blow up the compound. Fearing that his friend Ponytail is still inside with the explosive, Kreese hesitates, and the group ends up being caught by the Vietnamese. The next few weeks are literally hell. Kreese's unit is tortured and humiliated on a daily basis, while being kept inside a bamboo cage. The captors even make an example out of Ponytail and execute the poor guy in full view of his comrades. Turner openly blames Kreese for being a coward and not detonating the explosives, which leads to great bitterness between the survivors. A while later, the Vietnamese came up with an even more creative form of torture. They began making the soldiers face off against each other over a snake pit, which sends Terry into a panic attack. Unfortunately, it's Silver's turn to fight above the pit, and his opponent is none other than the merciless captain. Finding his friend in no shape to fight, Kreese takes on the challenge himself and soon finds himself facing off against his mentor. Turner, however, has one final trick up his sleeve. He informs Kreese how Betsy had died in a fatal car accident, which he had learned from a letter that had arrived a few days before their deployment. to keep Kreese in his unit. Turner had kept this information secret, but was not above using Kreese's grief to his advantage. Despite his gain, Kreese is too good of a student. After struggling a bit initially, he manages to overpower Turner by stabbing him in the leg with a bamboo shoot. Moments before casting his mentor into the snake pit, Kreese would utter the famous words that the Cobra Kai hold so dear: "No mercy." Kreese eventually frees his comrade, causing Silver to be indebted to Kreese all his life. The surviving members of the unit would earn their berets, but Kreese would keep on serving in the Green Beret unit for the U.S. Army. Kreese and Silver would continue their rigorous karate workouts and sparring, leading to Kreese becoming the U.S. Army's karate champion twice, in 1970 and 1972. Establishing Cobra Kai. After Kreese's retirement from the military, the once formidable fighter was reduced to a hardened and angry individual. Add to this the grief caused by Betsy's death, and you have a true recipe for disaster. Due to his bereavement, Kreese could never really get over the war, and despite returning home, his soul remained on the battlefield. He vowed never to lose again, and began to discipline himself through even more rigorous karate training. Eventually, with some financial help from Terry, Kreese set up his own karate dojo in the Valley in 1975. As you can probably guess, he named it Cobra Kai, in honor of the experience he had while fighting Turner above the snake pit. It was here that he came up with his own version of the Way of the Fist. Since karate was really big in the Valley during the late 70s, hordes of young men joined the war veterans dojo and began gaining lessons that strengthened both their bodies and minds. Year after year, more and more of the Valley's youth began living by the motto, "Strike first, strike hard, no mercy." Under Kreese's leadership, Cobra Kai won the All-Valley tournament twice, before Johnny Lawrence even showed up at the dojo. By 1979, Cobra Kai had emerged as one of the most respected dojos in the entire region. Kreese also made visits to South Korea during this period and trained under the formidable Kim Soon-young to gain almost unparalleled prowess in hand-to-hand combat. Though he could have easily entered the World Karate Tournament, Kreese decided to stay away for the sake of his new star student, 12-year-old Johnny Lawrence. Lawrence, who had a rather unfulfilling home life, was the perfect candidate for Kreese, and the master trained the kid in his merciless ways from the very beginning. Though Johnny was just looking for a father figure, Kreese remained unsympathetic to his plight and even berated the young boy for crime. After all, among the ranks of Cobra Kai, tiers are reserved for the losers. The training turned the timid boy into a strong, athletic young man who became an insufferable bully. Under Kreese's guidance, Johnny competed in his first All-Valley Karate tournament, although he lost to the standing champion, Daryl Vidal. Despite this, Kreese saw incredible potential in the boy and encouraged him to compete again. Following this, Johnny would end up winning the tournament twice, once in 1982 and then again in 1983. John Kreese and the Karate Kid series. Most of the Karate Kid film franchise, Kreese is the main antagonist responsible for most of Daniel LaRusso's misfortunes. When the trouble between Johnny Lawrence and Daniel began, Kreese seemed oddly pleased with his students' heinous action. When Mr. Miyagi and Daniel visited the Cobra Kai dojo to confront the assailants, Kreese was instructing his students to be merciless to their opponents. Though Miyagi tried to make peace with Kreese, the hard-headed veteran seemed keen on settling things with a fistfight. Eventually, the two karate masters decided to settle things by having their students compete at the All-Valley tournament, with the sole condition that Daniel would be left alone until then. Kreese even threatened Miyagi in case Daniel did not show up, which is a clear testament to his kill or be killed philosophy. At the tournament, Kreese received an unpleasant surprise when Daniel began taking down opponent after opponent. In the end, he was left with no other option than to sacrifice his second-best student, Bobby Brown, by asking him to injure Daniel through illegal moves. During the semifinal, Bobby ended up injuring Daniel's leg, but LaRusso persisted and made it to the final. Here, Johnny tried every move taught by his sensei, but eventually lost to Miyagi's protege. After the loss at the All-Valley Karate tournament, Kreese reacted violently by berating Johnny and breaking his trophy. As the Cobra Kai students began to see their mentor for the volatile scumbag he really was, a fight broke out. Even at his advanced age, Kreese was able to take out multiple students until Mr. Miyagi finally intervened. We see Mr. Miyagi lose it for once when Kreese calls him a racial slur, and the experienced master was able to easily defeat Kreese in a one-on-one battle. The Cobra Kai students recovered and walked away from the dojo, marking the beginning of the end. In the third film, we encounter Kreese as a broke vagrant who finally reaches out to his war buddy, Terry Silver. Silver, of course, agrees to help the man who saved his life so many years ago. Kreese fakes his own death by retreating to Tahiti, while Silver takes control of the Cobra Kai dojo. He enlists Mike Barnes to defeat Daniel at the All-Valley tournament. However, their plans are stalled when Daniel himself enters Cobra Kai as a student due to a brief disagreement with Mr. Miyagi. Eventually, Daniel comes to see the error of his ways and tries to step out of the tournament. This is when Kreese appears and reveals that he isn't really dead. Miyagi is forced to intervene and save Daniel from Kreese, Silver, and Barnes, who are hell-bent on beating the teenager to a pulp. At the tournament, Barnes faces Daniel in a sudden death round, where Daniel persists and manages to emerge victorious. After this, the association bans Cobra Kai from entering the tournament, leading to Kreese disappearing yet again. Later developments. After the tournament, Kreese finds himself at rock bottom. He tries to re-enlist in the army, but is rejected due to his psychological issue, having lost all his money and respect. Kreese finds himself living in a homeless shelter until Johnny reopens the dojo during the events of the Cobra Kai series.
How does second place feel now, huh? Now who's a loser?
John Kreese in Cobra Kai. After Johnny Lawrence reestablishes the Cobra Kai dojo and Miguel Diaz emerges as champion at the All-Valley tournament, Kreese finally makes it back to his beloved dojo. Congratulating Johnny on his victory, Kreese reveals his intention to rejoin the dojo in order to take down Daniel LaRusso and the Miyagi-Do Karate School. In Season 2 of the series, fractures begin to appear between Johnny and Kreese from the very beginning. They literally engage in karate showdowns the moment they see each other, and Johnny forbids Kreese from entering the dojo again. Johnny and Kreese meet once again at a diner. While Kreese tries persuading Johnny to join his cause, Johnny is reluctant, but finally agrees to let Kreese in after finding out that his mentor has fallen on hard times since the 1985 tournament. After being reinstated as a sensei, Kreese begins to manipulate the students into becoming more ruthless and violent. This new conditioning makes the Cobra Kai students extremely volatile, and things eventually escalate to the point where there is an all-out brawl at the school. During this fight, Miguel Diaz suffers grave injuries, which Kreese utilizes to his advantage. By preying on his students' feelings, he is able to take control of Cobra Kai, leaving Johnny with no other option but to walk away. Since Johnny is already going through severe depression due to Miguel's injury and the fact that his son Robbie is now a fugitive, he just decides to storm off in anger. Needless to say, this marks the return of the old Cobra Kai. By the third season, it becomes evident that a fight between Kreese and the other dojos is inevitable. After getting rid of Johnny, Kreese's cruelty grows beyond anything we have ever known before, and he even kicks out a bunch of Johnny's old students for their weakness. He also starts recruiting local bullies to his side, showing that the man is as unethical as they get. While Robbie is detained in juvenile prison, Kreese warms up to the vulnerable teenager and persuades him to join Cobra Kai. Meanwhile, Johnny's new dojo, Eagle Fang Karate, and Miyagi-Do merge to deal with the greater threat posed by Cobra Kai. But the meeting between the two groups of students is interrupted by a Cobra Kai raid. Realizing what has happened, both Daniel and Johnny rush to confront Kreese and beat him up. It's hella satisfying, to be honest. However, Kreese eventually convinces them to settle the conflict at the next All-Valley tournament, and the three teachers agree to leave karate forever if their dojo loses. With the stakes higher than ever before, Kreese calls up his old pal, Terry Silver, for help. Most of the fourth season depicts the different dojos training their students for the rapidly approaching tournament. Silver agrees to help Kreese, but he is no longer the same man, having found peace and stability in his life. He even deems their actions against Daniel to be insane, but Kreese reminds him of all they went through in Vietnam. After a couple of encounters, Kreese finally convinces his old war buddy to join Cobra Kai as a sensei. Kreese also showcases a special knack for understanding young people during this season and is able to inspire great loyalty within his students, especially the vulnerable ones like Tori and Robbie. This allows him to put the kids through extremely rigorous training, which almost borders on abuse. He also tells his students that any weakness exhibited by the enemy is to be exploited, even coming up with his own version of balance with Silver. He teaches the Cobra Kai fighters to manipulate their enemies and throw them off. At the tournament, Cobra Kai is able to win over the combined might of Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang, which means that Daniel must now retire as a sensei. However, we soon learn that Silver rigged the tournament. Kreese's old friend seems to have even more secrets up his sleeve, as he had recently beaten up Stingray to within an inch of his life. When the police come knocking, Silver sacrifices Kreese to the authority in order to gain control of Cobra Kai, which he soon plans to turn into a nationwide franchise. By the time Kreese realizes what has happened, it's far too late, and an even more dangerous individual is heading the most formidable dojo in the region. Kreese is found guilty of aggravated battery and spends much of the period inside jail. Completely broke, he is forced to use a public defender as his lawyer, and, well, those guys are kind of terrible, we are being honest. Thus, Kreese is desperate for help by the time Johnny and Daniel show up at the prison. The two senseis seek to leverage Kreese's knowledge to overpower Silver in exchange for providing him with legal help. He tells the duo that Silver is planning to enter the dojo in an international karate event, Sekai Takai, as he had wanted so many years ago. Despite getting the information, Daniel doesn't really help Kreese. The old veteran is left to rot in prison. For some time after this, it seems like Kreese is making actual breakthroughs via therapy, and we even see the hardened criminal cry. However, all of this turns out to be just a ruse. Kreese uses these sessions as an opportunity to steal the therapist's keycard. Later, he also orchestrates a prison stabbing, which leads to him getting transported to the hospital. The scheming soldier overpowers the doctor, steals his clothes, and walks out of prison using the therapist's keycard. Well, that's never really good news. But damn, we'd be lying if we told you that we aren't excited like never before for Kreese to make his return in the final season.
Kill me.
Marvelous verdict. Kreese's life is a testament to the dark places violence and vengeance can take you. The man seems to enjoy inflicting pain in a way that's truly psychopathic, but his art also serves as a cautionary tale about the influence a teacher can have on the lives of their students. And when the student is as vulnerable as Johnny, Robbie, or Tori, it can lead to some truly horrifying circumstances. But what do you think? Will Kreese finally go away for good by the end of Cobra Kai? Do let us know in the comments below. Well, that is it for now. But don't forget to click the subscribe button to stay updated on all our marvelous content. With that, I guess it's time for a goodbye. But don't worry, because we'll see you in the next one.